Hi, and welcome to the PAL Fans International podcast. We're back again with the American panel. I'm here with Alki. Alki, how are you?
I'm good, Adoni. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We had a big result today. Panathinaikos playing in Champions League, first time in 8 years or so. So spirits are high. And also here with Mitso. Mitso, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Adone. How are you?
Doing well, Mitso. So we're gonna kind of cover today's match. There's been a lot of news for Panathinaikos the last couple of weeks. Last week, as we saw in the week prior, a lot of big news happening with Panathinaikos basketball. But this week, of course, was the big game for Panathinaikos FC. So we had our game against Dnipro 1, which is a Ukrainian side, and we played them in our second qualifier for Champions League. So today was the first leg. We played away. Panathinaikos, of course, came away with the 3-1 victory. Panathinaikos, some of our stats, we had 8 shots, 3 on target, 45% possession. Goals scored by Juricic, Fotis Ioannidis, and Andras Sporar. So we had, a good showing out there on paper there, that 3-1 win. Dnipro, of course, put up a fight, and we're going to kind of highlight that a little bit, kind of talk about that. And so I'm going to head over to Alki and just ask you, what are some of the positives that you got from today's game, Alki? What's the breakdown? What were some highlights that you saw from today's 3-1 victory?
Um, I'd say we started off the game. First half was really strong. I think Jovanovic and the players noticed, how compact and tight Dnipro was playing. So we were switching the ball, passing very good. And I think that just kind of tired out Dnipro for the first half. We looked really solid. I think our new midfield with Jurcic and Vilena, definitely, new signings from this summer definitely made their mark on this game. And I think just going forward, just very strong midfield. Like we mentioned last podcast, that, I think with the loss of Kurbelis, we thought our midfield was going to be, so with Seren coming back, Perez, and, we signed Zeka, but, he didn't even play today. With those two, I think it's kind of a breath of fresh air, different dynamic to our midfield that I think we've just been missing. Whereas in the past, it's just been super solid, consistent, but nothing. There's been no dynamic play from our midfield, and I think today was the complete opposite. So I think that's for me, those were our biggest strong points. And of course, always Brignoli and goal coming in that box. I think defensively, for the most part, we played pretty good.
Yeah, fantastic. I agree there, Alki. You mentioned Jovanovic kind of, he looked at the game a little bit. He made the adjustments. I noticed Dnipro made some adjustments as well when we played against them. We started off the match, and it seemed like the first 10 or 15 minutes, they were really exposed out on the flanks, and we were able to kind of take advantage of that a little bit, and they adjusted to that. And of course, Ivan adjusted as well. I really like the way that we started off the game. I felt like we were able to kind of bring the game to them. I liked that we were able to kind of rush up, press, and it looked like we were hungry. We were chasing that goal, and that was really, really nice to see compared to last season, sometimes playing a little bit cautious. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But I agree with the midfield, especially the midfield with Vilena. Something that I think we kind of lacked last season was that midfield player that could kind of make those forward-thinking passes, penetrate between the lines. And I really enjoyed that he was able to kind of hold on to the ball as well. I mentioned that we had our group chat. Sometimes, with players like, Perez, for example, they kind of go down a little bit easy. So it's nice having
Yeah,
a
they're
player.
older, slower. Yeah, Vilena and Jurcic can hold possession. They're strong guys. I think they can hold on to the ball well, and I don't have a worry. If they're getting pressed, they just know to make the right play. It just showed that today.
Exactly. Yeah, we have that quality now. It seems like in the midfield, and we kind of saw a little hint of it today. Of course, this is their first competitive game together, but it was positive. It was nice to see something like that together, where a guy like Juricic, who was, it looked like even at some point we kind of switched to like a almost like a 4-4-2 in some instances. It looked like he was playing next to Sporard in some instances. So I was like, okay, cool. He can kind of play like a hybrid role. So we had Juricic doing that, doing his thing, pressing. And then Vilena kind of making those forward-thinking passes, staying up. So that was something positive. Overall, I was pretty happy with that score. Of course, Panathinaikos' first showing in 8 years, so we got that in Champions League. With that said, Mitso, how did you see the game? What were some of your takeaways from the game? Things that really stood out to you?
Well, going into it, I think it was an interesting dynamic because, from the one hand, we've been out of the Champions League qualifiers for quite some time, so that puts us at a disadvantage in terms of being an underdog. But at the same time, we're playing against the side that I think ultimately we were, and I think it showed that we were the favorites, or at least the stronger team. So that was an interesting dynamic, seeing that. And I think it reflected in the game where, as you said, the tactics shifted throughout the game. There were times where we were on the back foot, obviously playing away, it being the first game of the season. So, players are rusty, new players are still getting acclimated. But at the same time, we were on the front foot, we were attacking, we were pressing. So that was interesting to see. I think in the moments in the game that we tried to play as the dominant favorite side, I think we did that well, at least well enough for, the caveat of it being the first game of the season. Certainly there were players that impressed. Happy surprises, I'll say the least, about Sporad. And obviously the two new guys in the midfield. I didn't think Vilena was going to start, so that was great seeing him from the beginning. And I honestly think the pairing between him and Juricic in the midfield there was very interesting as well, because in the preseason game, Juricic played more of like a 10 winger hybrid type, but now he seemed like he was a more like 8-10 box to box attacking midfielder. So that was really cool, because I think having a strong midfield, literally like in numbers, but also the players that you have being technical and strong, is a huge advantage, especially going into these qualifiers.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there, Mitso. And you brought up a good point. I didn't even think about it. You reminded me of it, where going into this game, Panathinaikos were the favorites. Dnipro, of course, are displaced from their current home. They're playing in a stadium outside of their usual home due to the circumstances.
Right? Can you remember the last time Panathinaikos had a European game in which they were the clear favorites? Like, honestly, on paper, favorites.
It's been a long time. Maybe against Motherwell, like in 2013 or something like that.
I was gonna say it's probably at least a decade.
Yeah, it has to be.
And Miguel Yomas, like it's been a while. So
and not to take anything away from Dnipro, because obviously we're the favorites, the scoreline shows it. But like, if you actually watch the game, like they still brought it to us too, man. I mean, they were no slouch. They just couldn't. There were a few times. If we had, I hate to say it, Diuli compared to Brignoli for a few of these, I think they would have put at least a couple more past us. And I love Diuli, but I think just the level that Brignoli is compared to him is just so much more. And kudos to them. They put up a great fight, but yeah, they weren't, looking at the numbers, like we said earlier, they dominate us in a lot of possession, passes and everything, but we were just able to finish off the chances, and they were just unfortunate and couldn't.
And that's a quick shout out to Brignoli, because he didn't really have any big saves to make, but this is where like a keeper comes in handy besides shot stopping, like how calm he is coming out for crosses, or how good he is with the ball at his feet.
Did you guys see him cross that one guy and switch to his left and then get it over to Bernard, just with ease, wasn't even worried, just a quick
confident.
little, chop at the back. That it's just he impresses me more and more and more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was nice seeing a keeper from Tabuca playing we had, just going back to like the initial point here, like this is the first time Panathinaikos in several years went into it with being the favorite, and they delivered. Because if I'm being honest, if we're being honest with ourselves, Panathinaikos the last 10 years or so, anytime we're the favorites, anytime we're supposed to win, that's where we usually drop points. That's usually where we drop the ball. So it was a positive. It was something good to go in there with being the favorites on paper and having that mentality. And I really liked what Sporar said after the game. He had a quote, and he was saying we're going to go into the game next week thinking that it's still 0-0. So I like that mentality of the club, right? I like that Ivan has kind of put this sort of winner's mentality, this dog mentality where we're going to fight instead of roll over. And guys like Brignoli, of course, who maybe he should be the captain. I don't know. I feel like a guy like Brignoli, just knowing that you've got a captain or a goalkeeper who's so confident, shot stopping.
He's a leader.
passing the
He's a
ball.
natural leader, man. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got the experience. He commands that box all the time, which is something I think that was a flaw of Diulis. Like, we haven't had a good goalkeeper like him, obviously, since, Odi left. But I mean, yeah, he's got the full package. I can't see why, or I don't see why he shouldn't be or wasn't considered for a captain. He's just got that. I don't know. He's got an aura to him. He's calm and cool on the ball. He commands the box. He's got a voice, leadership, all that. He brings the whole thing, and I think that he definitely deserves a shout for that captain band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's got that calm, cool, collected Italian vibe going on there for us, which is awesome. Which is awesome for sure. Yeah, so those are some of the positives, some of those good takeaways. I was really happy with that overall. Now, another positive, going back again with Sporar with that quote, we talked about it in our chat. I felt like Andras Sporar was positive today. He was moving around. He was high energy. One of my personal complaints last season was that he just wasn't that mobile of a striker. I preferred Foti towards the end of the season because he actually brought some mobility to our attack. Today he was running, pulling defenders. Of course, he scored the goal. What were your guys' thoughts? Do you guys think this is something that's going to die off? Or is this something maybe he's in with this new mentality? He's ready to go. What are you guys thinking about that?
I don't know. I hope it continues. It's like a saying my yaya used to tell me when I was little, get that energy or just the unexpected. She'd say nefti sto golo, like something just got in him and he had it, dude. I mean, he was even making runs like taking the ball and carrying it from midfield down and making the right passes. That pass over to Vilena where he just whiffed it, like carrying it into the ball. Like he just had it all. He looked like a striker that we've been wanting. And being mobile, making passes, carrying the ball versus just kind of, we've said it all last season. He just was waiting for service and he's just waiting for the ball instead of going to it. And I'm hoping, knock on wood, God forbid, and we have full health. I think we will see more of that from him this season, just because I think he didn't get the good service last year just due to health. Like, Palacios was a disappointment. Aitor went down early. Mancini came on after Sporar was pretty much already benched by then. Like, there are too many factors where I think now it's a fresh start for him. He got a full summer off. I hope it continues.
Yeah. Mitso, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think with Sporar specifically, my bet would be the full preseason with Ivan Jovanovic is what made a difference, at least for this first game. He definitely impressed me, like Alki was saying. It wasn't even just that he was involved and, actually playing with the midfield instead of just waiting for service, but the fact that he was carrying the ball and trying to distribute was a massive sign, massive positive sign for me for Sporar.
Yeah, it was almost as if, of course, not on the same level, but him dropping back and kind of being a playmaker as well reminded me a little bit of Berg. If you guys remember back when Berg was on the team when we played in Europe, he would get into those different little pockets and he would connect. Of course, we had Petric as well as our kind of secondary striker, Karelis. But Berg was able to build off of his scoring skill set as well and kind of pass the ball around. So if Sporar can kind of continue this momentum, which I really hope he does because we're going to need it, that's going to be really positive going into Europe and also for the Prodathima as well. So, you know, Alki, we discussed this earlier, but we saw Sporar have that kind of initial spark against Slavia last year when he came in and scored on his debut. You know, here's hoping that with that preseason, like Mitso mentioned, maybe he's more acclimated to the side. That's going to continue. We're going to see more of it instead of kind of fizzling out.
I hope so. I don't want to see more of this. Like, hey, I didn't see him like complain about where somebody put the ball. Like you see Ronaldo always points down, like give it here, give it. I didn't see any. I didn't see a single complaint from him today, other than complaining to the ref about, you know, being fouled or something. I didn't see him complain once to his teammates, and all last season was just, hey, I was here, pass me, like just asking for it. Today is just more involved. He was, you know, it's just like basketball. You get those touches so you warm up and just build momentum. He's a part of the link up play, which is huge for a striker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he wasn't complaining. He was just kind of in the zone. He took some hits too. You know, he was getting physical, taking some hits, got back up. And that's something that you want to see, because seeing your teammates sulk, that's not really a positive thing, you know. So seeing him kind of take those hits and being that guy, and also just again going back to his quote after the game, I like that kind of leadership. I like the dynamic of the team, because it's like Jovanovic is building a team. He's established a culture of men, of winners, not of, you know, cowards and complaining and, you know, it's the ref's fault or whoever's fault. So it's nice to see at the top, we've got the striker being a leader. We mentioned the goalkeeper in the back. He's also a leader. So we're seeing that kind of permeate through. So, of course, you lead from the front, you lead from the back as well. Overall, Sporar, we're hoping that you continue. If you're listening to this, I hope so. Please, you know.
The other surprise I want to mention too is Bernard, because we talked about last podcast all season, and he had some of his moments, but today a lot of the build up that we saw from Jovanovic in the game plan of switching it and us taking advantage on the flanks, Bernard was making those runs too. You know, he was getting in ahead, beating their defender, their fullback, and getting to the ball, and just not necessarily providing after the fact, because he did lose the ball a few times or make some bad passes, but the fact that he was just there made him a threat. And you notice that Dinpro in the second half definitely adjusted to us playing that way. Obviously he got subbed off later, but seeing that from him in a position where we always complain he's not a winger, he can't beat his guys anymore. It was still evident today. He couldn't beat guys off the ball, or on the ball when he was on it, but he was still making those runs, getting, you know, that service from Brignoli. And I think that was just a nice refresher to see just from him, because he was just so, you know, we always say he's always got that class. Form is temporary, class is permanent. And so we know he has a technical skill. He's shown it, but he just has to play the right way. And I think today he showed that. He wasn't bad. He wasn't overall amazing or anything, but he was very solid and became a threat for us, which I think helped just make the rest of the offense flow.
Yeah, I agree. I you know, with Bernard, you guys already know my opinion of him. I haven't been the hugest fan of Bernard. I agree with what you're talking about, Alki. Like, technically, his touch is beautiful. I mean, there were some passes that Ruben had for him that I thought were overhit, and he just brought them down with ease. His passes were great as well. Some of the service to him I felt wasn't the best. Like, there was one instance where I think Vilena like overhit the ball like super hard. It's just, he doesn't have the legs to sprint 1,000 miles an hour and, you know, get the ball. But he was a bit of a threat. You know, he was trying his best to hold on to it. I still think Bernard is trying to figure out where he belongs now, because again, he's a little bit older now. So he hasn't got the pace. He doesn't really have the legs for it anymore. So on the wing, I feel like he's not fully comfortable, but he's also mentioned, I think in the past, he doesn't like playing as a 10 in the midfield either.
He hates it.
Yeah, he's not a big fan of it. So it's hard. I feel like in this system, it's hard for him to fit in. He's a great player. But like you mentioned, it wasn't anything negative on his end. It was just he had a solid backing, a solid play style today. It's just, yeah, for me, it's still trying to figure out where in the heck does he belong in this team and what kind of style fits his play style the best. Mitsu, what were you thinking about Bernard? Any comments you wanted to make on him at all?
I think one more thing about the midfield, that Juricic and Vilena combo in the midfield, it being very more dynamic and more directly involved in the offense, it could be something that is catered to Bernard in a way. Like, he's not really one to make like these sprint runs in the back of defense because he doesn't have the legs for it, but maybe bringing in the midfield so that he can bounce those 1-2s off of or distract a player that he's trying to beat one-on-one, that could like help bring out his skills that he still has. So I think that would be something I want to keep my eye out for and hope that, especially Judicic on that side, the left, Bernard playing on the left wing, so Judicic playing on the left side of the center mid, that it's like a duo where Judicic is the one kind of helping him cover that distance that he can't run anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, like, he's
Yeah,
not
I think
gonna.
it works on both sides because I even saw Jurcic a lot on the right side when Kotsiras was making
Right.
overlapping runs and Palacios had to cover back. Like, we've got both sides covered, and I think we talked about this a lot. I think that might help cater to Bernard and Palacios. I think they had bad seasons last year because over reliance on them. We're trying to ask too much of them, and simplifying their responsibility of, hey, just play your game. We got the midfield covered. Be support for link up play. I think that might play to our advantage, especially today because I thought he's gonna be coming back from injury. Hopefully, he'll be back in form in no time. Mancini coming off the bench, so like having that kind of energy and quality off the bench helps ease the pressure off of those guys. I think you may bring up a good point, Mito, that they don't have to fall back as much or they don't have to cover as much ground anymore, because
Mhm.
we've got that covered now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, Mitso, that you bringing that up, it kind of course, it's not at the same level, but it reminds me of like what Scaloni does with Argentina with Messi and the midfield. They,
Mhm.
of course, the system is built around Messi, but that midfield kind of allows Messi to, because we know he doesn't really track back. Um,
Preserves
that
him
kind of
though.
allows him to get
Preserves
kind
his
of,
legs and get into those spots that he needs to. He doesn't have to do as much like he did in Barcelona. I would watch
yeah,
Champions League's game. He would have to be all over the field.
yeah, he'd have to be all over tracking, and that's something that maybe Jova is doing here with Bernard, where Bernard has that technical ability. He can score the ball, he can pass the ball, but if he's spending half of his energy or more chasing the ball, trying to gain possession back again, I mean, it's going to be almost
Maybe why he
impossible.
doesn't like playing at the 10 because he has to just do too much and he knows he's limited. He knows his role, and maybe he prefers the wing because it doesn't require as much from him. I mean, who knows? But that's a really good point, Mitsu. I mean, I would hope, yeah, the midfield should help both those guys, I think, just in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you guys have been talking about Zuricic again, and it's just, I forgot to mention him as well. Like, he's awesome. I mean, I forget. I think Alki, you mentioned, I think he's 30, 31. He didn't even look like it. I mean, the
He's still got
guy,
the legs, man, compared to Bernard, who's probably had injuries, of course. He's had some bad knee injuries, but for 30, 31, Juricic looks, he's got, he's not the fastest, but he's still got pace. He's still got legs, agility. Like,
yeah,
he's just, it's fun to watch him play.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned it in the chat, you're like, yeah, he's 30, 31 years old. If only we had gotten him a few years earlier. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy's in his 30s. I mean, the guy's playing like he's 25 years old, full of stamina, full of energy. And I just love how he was bouncing around. Like you guys are mentioning, he's covering for Kotsira on the right. He went over to the left. Of course, he scored the goal. He
Yeah,
was playing
he's
sport
30,
on.
he's 31, going to be turning 32 end of January. So I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
he's going to be one of those guys. You know, we always complain about these 32, 34-year-olds, whatever, but comparing him to a guy like Bernard, they're the same age essentially, or even to a guy like Perez, you know, they just don't have the legs at this age.
Yeah.
And him, you don't see that. It's kind of scary. Those Serbs, man.
Yeah, built like machines. I mean, yeah, the guy's running up and down the pitch. I mean, he's got the quality. These are the types of players, exactly. Alki. If we're signing 30-year-olds, I mean, let's, get these kinds of guys that still have their legs. Of course, no knock to Bernard or Perez. They bring their own skill to the game.
Of
They have
course.
their own tools. So, with that said,
Well,
overall,
one quick thing, Adoni, since we were talking about turning back the clock, and the biggest surprise that we forgot to mention even pre recording is Juancar. Obviously, we might get to him later, obviously man of the match stuff, but I mean, involved in what, all three goals? Yeah,
yeah,
because he technically gets the assist for pulling the penalty. Um,
It was his
and
100th game for the club.
him
yeah,
and Foti both got 100 games. Yeah, they both scored, but I mean, what a game for him. Like,
40's
com-
at 100 games.
I think I saw them post. I could be wrong. I'll check right now. I thought I saw on Twitter that the team posted he made his 100th appearance, but I could be wrong.
uh,
But I mean, just in general, like Juancar involved in all three. I mean,
yeah.
we thought at this age, give him an extension, let him stay around. Like, we need a backup. We need somebody better. He's getting old. He showed his age last year, but today, obviously, turn back the clock, man. Like 5-6 years, he was amazing. And he didn't
Yeah.
slow down.
No, he was running the whole time. And I mean, there were concerns last season, like you alluded to. We had thought, okay, he got his contract now. Maybe this is kind of like he's taking it easy. This is the Juancar that we saw 2 seasons ago when we won the
The
cup. I mean,
cup.
yeah, he
He was
was
huge. Without him,
everywhere.
him and Aitor, without those two, like, we would have been nowhere. And
Yeah,
today, again, we would have been nowhere without him in today's game.
yeah. He megs the guy, he megs the defender, goes in, crosses in, goal. He goes in, he passes the ball to Judicic, bang, goal. He goes into the box again, left side, penalty win. So, I mean, the guy came from Real Madrid's academy, and I mean, today it kind of showed he's got great IQ. He's got great threat. He's still got the pace for being in his 30s. And
Very
I
good
think
technically, obviously.
yeah, great technical player. I mean, I had seen him, I was scouting him when we first signed him, and it said that he could play on the wing as well. I mean, maybe he's a little bit older now for that, but I mean, the guy going forward is great. And I think Alki, I can't believe I forgot about Juancar. He's a key to the success for this team, I think.
Very. I mean, especially with Ganeo, we don't know how he's going to come back out of injury. We don't really have much competition for him, so there's going
And
to be a
just
lot of
Mladenovic,
reliance
right?
on him. What's that?
Just Mladenovic, right? We have Ganea and Mladenovic.
That's
Yeah.
right,
So
because we just signed him. So, and just to confirm, yeah, I'm checking the Panathinaikos page. Juancar 100 appearance, 40 100 appearances as well, which is so weird. I never would
yeah,
have guessed that for 40, but I mean, he's been in a not an academy product, but he's been around for a few years, just kind of
yeah.
sparingly played.
We got him in what 2018, 19, something like that. I'm a huge fan of Forti as well. Of course, these types of players, very technical player. We don't see that too much. Well, you know what, with the younger generation of Greek players, we do see a little bit more. These technical
Not
players.
enough forward though, because everybody nowadays just wants to be an attacker or winger, basically, and
Yeah,
just pace and vibes, and just not playing the actual aspect of the game that you're needing. So, but yeah, Juancar, man, I don't know how we forgot. Obviously, I know, we'll discuss that later. He's obviously probably general consensus man of the match, even with everybody else playing that well. But he was just, I was blown away by him today, honestly.
Do you guys think, because we got Ganea in the winter transfer, right? Or am I mistaken?
Yeah.
Last season, yeah.
correct.
Right. And with Maldanovic coming in now, do you think that had much of a role to play in his rejuvenation, that little extra competition? Because even on on some of the Greek radio that I was listening to before the game, they referenced both fullback positions as like two of the three positions that it could go either way in terms of starters for the game. Which I was surprised, I guess, a little bit that Juankar wasn't an automatic starter for some of the journos. So I just wonder, like, seeing
I don't know,
Mladenovic-
because I feel like, you know, he got his contract extension. So at this point for him, if I was him, like he's getting paid, he's 34. Like,
Right.
you know, how much more does he have? Does playing or competing for that spot, if there's two guys that equally everyone thinks could take your spot, does that matter? But I think
don't
he's
know.
Mr. Reliable for Jovanovic. I mean, we thought we saw what we would think in the midfield, but he brought in Vilena had what, 2 weeks with us of training and instant start in our biggest game in a while for Europe. And Jurisic obviously been here longer. He got almost a full preseason, but brand new signing. And I feel like the midfield was one area where we thought we had so many guys, but nobody of like specific quality, where these two new guys were brought in. And I feel like the same with Juankar, though. He's just one of Ivan's guys that he can rely on him and know he's going to get the job done. No matter what we thought about last year, he still got his time. Ivan hasn't lost faith, and obviously it showed today. I don't know, Mitso. I would say I would have thought before today's game, both sides toss up. Vagianidis we saw in preseason almost looked like he got a lock to just barely get over Kotsiras. Same thing on the left with the signings. Ganea coming back, and Ganea looked pretty solid for us last year while Juankar was out. But I mean, Ivan obviously went back to him, and it's really hard to say because I never would have expected the two new guys to start in midfield today either. But Ivan is showing, you know, that nobody's safe, I guess.
And with Juankar, I mean, yeah, he's 34. He has his contract now that, you know, he's going to be guaranteed a paycheck for the next couple seasons. And I don't know much of his career path before us, but I mean, maybe just the motivation is to reach a group stage, you know, Champions League, even Europa. Again, if he hasn't really played in a group stage, or if it's been,
I don't think he has. I'm looking over now. He played in Portugal and Spain. I mean, Malaga and Braga, played Granada, Real Betis way long ago. Like he's bounced around, but
so this
checking
might be, you
now, I
know,
don't think he.
his last chance as a starter playing in a group stage, and you know, that's not something to take for granted for a lot of players. You know what I mean? Like getting a group stage under their belt, even at 34, it's not nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking now. I don't think he's played. He played Europa League in 13-14 with Betis. So that was
we all
10 years
remember
ago. He
when-
was 23 years. He was 23 years old, probably just getting his feet wet, like in the
And
league.
we all remembered how hard he was celebrating when we won the cup. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to be one of the biggest moments of his career. So, again, getting a group stage is an achievement he's probably looking for.
Yeah, that's right. Because he saw last season too. I mean, we came so close to winning the league as well. I mean, the guy's probably like
That's his only trophy, by the way,
Oh, there you go.
in his career was with us.
So he's tasted success with Panathinaikos a little bit, and he knows the European pedigree that the club has had historically. And then again, you know, we missed out barely on winning the league last year. Would have been huge. So the guy probably just had maybe a wake up call a little bit. Again, you guys kind of brought up we got Mladenovic, Ganea going to come back whenever he's healed up. So
What he got a 1-year extension though, I'm looking over. So maybe, I mean, the other thing you bring up a good point, Mitso, is maybe he's showing off not only for competition, but if, you know, he's 33, 34, his next contract is going to be his last one. His contract expires next year from what I'm seeing on transfer market. He got a 1-year extension probably. So, I mean, this is technically his last season unless they extend him another year, or if he's just trying to, you know, see if he can get one last good contract from someone else in Europe. And he's got to show up this season.
Yeah, he's got to show up for sure. You know, because technically he extended last summer. Is that right? Something like that.
I don't see the details of it right now. I mean, we can definitely look into it, but based on transfer market, his contract expires at the end of summer next year in 24.
Okay. Yeah. So there's probably another thing too. Maybe he wants to fight for that new contract. Maybe, I would love to have him. If he continues like this, I'd love to keep him on the team.
Yeah, go season by season, do the same
Yeah.
thing. If he has a good season, extend him for another year or something like that. At 34, like you can't really give him anything more than a year or two, and even 2 years I think is too much. But we'll take it day by day. Today, seeing him, I was blown away, happy, and just hope he keeps it up.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I was very happy with Juan Car, and I'm glad that you guys brought that up actually, because I wanted to give him his flowers a little bit, which I was gonna do anyway later, but definitely a bright spot in today's match. Now, moving on a little bit, we talked about the positives. There's a lot to take away. A lot of smiles, a lot of good things to take away. I just wanted to talk about maybe some concerns or some negatives that we had about the match, and maybe something that we'd like to see corrected going forward in the second leg and even throughout the season. For me personally, I just, I don't want to call out players, but I think Ruben was a little bit of a disappointment for me personally. I saw a lot of what we saw towards the end of last season and even a little bit before that, where we had attacks, we had numbers going forward, and he decided to side pass or pass back, and it just kind of killed momentum a little bit. There were definitely moments where we had chances. It was like the pendulum swung in two different directions, where we had numbers going forward and he slowed it down, or we had numbers going forward and somebody else would overhit a pass or just blast the ball forward, praying that one of our wingers would speed up and get to the ball. So those were two things that really kind of stood out to me, and they were kind of irking me because it was little semblances of what we saw last season, and I think that's what ultimately cost us in the league, especially where it was being too cautious, and then there was other times where it was just being too reckless with the ball, where we saw Dnipro, especially in the second half, coming out, being able to play their game, playing patient.
They killed us in the second half, especially on the counter. Like our midfield was non-existent. I don't know if maybe Vilena and Jurisic, were saving their legs or just ran out of gas or steam, or they were too far forward. But Perez played a lot of like panic ball, it looked like, the second half, like because he was last man standing before our last line of defense. And it's like he has nobody to play to, but at the same time, he doesn't have the legs. And just we saw a lot of that in big games last year. I remember in a lot of derbies, cup games, like he was very frustrating, like you said. And today kind of showed that. And it's sad because I like him and he's been one of our more reliable midfielders. But I mean, luckily or hopefully, maybe that's a spot maybe Zeka can take over.
Yeah,
or
that's
somebody
right.
else. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I actually forgot. Yeah, we've got Zeka. And yeah, it's in the big games where Ruben kind of does that. I'm a big fan of Ruben. I think he's kind of like our conductor. We've kind of talked about it in the chat before. I think when he's in his right mind and he's kind of calm, he can play those nice deep balls forward, playing it smart. It's just, I don't know, like lately why he's kind of nervous and panicky. Again, I mean, maybe it's the legs, the lack of the legs there, but I think we play our best ball when he is playing smart, not playing cautious, because that's, we had so many games last season where we would be 1-1 and we had a kind of, especially in the first half of the season, where we were kind of relying on like miracle, Hail Marys on the 90th minute score. And I think it kind of started from our play being way too cautious at times. So for me, that was one of the negatives, and I want to see that fixed in the next match. I want to see, I don't mind, like if Ivan goes with him again, I completely like understand why. It's just, play a little more ballsy. That's what I would like to see. You're playing for Panathinaikos in Europe. Play like a man a little bit.
Or just make the smart play, because I'm looking now at the stats and we talk about the midfield. Vilena and Jurisic played amazing. Each of them had about 40 to 45 touches. Perez had 61, so significantly more, and he just kind of didn't do much with it. You mentioned he was kind of just disappointing. He kind of wasn't. You said, Mitso, you completely forgot in some moments that he was even in the game.
Yep.
And for him to have more touches than two of our most dynamic guys in the midfield, and he just is not noticeable, I think says a lot more to the game than, we can pull numbers all day, but the numbers don't speak to the actual product on the field in this case. And it's just kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I'm watching the match and, I make a comment. I'm watching the game with my uncle. I'm like, yeah, on the podcast tonight, I'm going to make sure I mention this because Ruben was just frustrating because we were so close. I don't know when I'm going to get over us missing out on the Prodathima last year. We were so close, and it's things like that cost us. And it's still there. Of course, it's the first official game of the season, but you just see it and it grinds my gears a little bit.
Boneheaded mistakes. Him and Bart, like Bart made those stupid tackles in the last game of the season and got sent off. Like just stuff like that of our old guard. I respect them and have appreciated him all these seasons holding it down, but it's like we're trying to take it to the next level in that next gear and get back to what Panathinaikos should be known for, and we just can't keep having stuff like this happen, or games like this from guys like him. I mean, he's 34. I can't put too much expectation on him at this stage in his career.
Yeah.
But, it's our first big European game. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not expecting him to run marathons, but it's, if you've got a guy open on the wing on the left, why are you passing it back to Bart? Or why are you passing it back to Magnuson? Or, or sideways? Or another thing that frustrates me too is Vilena will have the ball and he'll point for him to pass it back. And I'm just kind of like, dude, we need to, at that point we're up 1-0, but we need to score more. You can't just get away and
got that mentality of once we're up, let's like park the bus, and like that's not us anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, the last 10 minutes of the first half, I mentioned it where I was a little bit disappointed, where it was like we were just playing to get to halftime. Bring the ball forward. Why are you getting scared? And
yeah,
it was things like that were kind of disappointing me a little bit. I feel bad to call out just Ruben, but he was really the main guy where I'm like, hey, I was hoping, and I mean, I could even see Ivan getting frustrated the whole time. He's sitting with his hand on his chin, kneeled down, looking,
Aristotle liked, but with an angry face.
Yeah, like he passed back and he just kind of looked bewildered, and I'm like, what can you do there, Ruben? I mean, hopefully he'll have a little more confidence going back to Leoforos, up 3-1. Were there any other concerns that you guys saw, or anything negative from the match that you want to see kind of corrected in the next leg?
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room since we're talking about players. I think the last one to bring up, Kotsiras.
Yeah, Kotsiras.
I don't know how to gauge his game today, guys. We can always, he's a space cadet. Like, let's put it out there. He means well, he makes the right runs, but sometimes he takes an extra dribble too long or makes the wrong pass. That still showed today, but at the same time, for a lot of the time, we were playing like almost like a 3-4-3 type of deal, where I saw Kotsiras was running forward or Kotsiras stayed back, and we had like Magnuson and oh man, I'm dropping the name here. The Croatian guy that came in for Bart.
Oh, Jedvaj?
Yeah, so we were playing more of like a 3 at the back for a lot of the game, or Jurisic would cover his back and Kotsiras would be making runs down the flanks. Like, he made some good crosses, got into good spots, got us a couple good set pieces. I don't know. What were you guys' thoughts? I think he was partially to blame maybe for today's goal that we conceded. We can talk about that. That's the biggest negative, obviously, but
yeah.
Sticking to player specific, Mitso, what did you think of Kotsiras?
Yeah, I guess you just kind of summed it up. Like, it's not like he made a major mistake, like any specific thing besides the goal, I guess, which was just a mess of defending. But putting that aside, it's not like he did any major mistakes where you can point to. But like you said, it's decision making, I guess. Like, he just doesn't know when to finish off a move or pass the ball. Kind of forgetful, covering his man at times. So I don't know. It's one of those weird things where, like, there's no major mistakes that you can point to, and like, hang that over his head, but at the same time, it's just kind of like an average. I think it was an average performance in a team that played really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to build off that, Alki, yeah, I'm glad you brought up Kotsiras as well. Again, not trying to single out players, but it's the truth. I mean, you said it perfectly. The guy's like a space cadet, right? Kotsiras is one of those players where he'll go forward and he'll be like a prime Ronaldo or something. He'll just go through 2-3 guys, and you're just kind of like, how did he do that? Or it'll get to his head and he'll take one too many dribbles, and it's like, dude, you were supposed to have crossed it like 3 seconds ago. What are you doing? And we
Yeah,
saw
his
some
mental is all about, like, he's got the pace, he's got the technique, sometimes he can cross the ball, like he's got all the tools to be like a solid, consistent fullback. But when he gets into his head, it ruins everything for him. But Mitchell, you put it good. I think, like, on a day where mostly our team played well, he had an average day. Didn't do anything bad necessarily, just wasn't amazing. He didn't stand out, I'd say. Obviously, like, if we look at stats, he's going to look probably the second or third, maybe fourth highest rated guy today, I think. And not to take any of that away from him. I mean, if we have to talk about players, I think he's one that he's always a topic of discussion. Like Vaganides, we all like him. He's younger, but he's also super raw still. Gotsiras is really our only other option, I think, unless I'm mistaken. And he has his good days and his bad days. I mean, not last season, the season before when we got him, he was one of the top rated fullbacks for the Greek league, I think, right?
yeah.
So getting him, everyone's like, oh, great, we got Kotsiras. Like, this is a good signing. We need bolstering on the right. And then last season happened. It was kind of like he's a head scratcher. Today, I don't know how to really judge his game. It looked great, from far away, but I still think that's a position
Yeah.
we should build off of.
I don't know why we went through the summer window. I mean, it's not closed yet, but I don't know why we didn't bring in another right back. We brought in, Mladenovic for the left side. We have Ganea coming back, and it's like, I love Vayanidis, don't get me wrong, but it's like just him as the backup to Kotsiras. I mean, both guys I think are very offensive oriented. I mean, we see Kotsiras running forward. Vayanidis, I mean, is a great player going forward as well. But we don't really have that guy. Like Juancar, at least I feel like Juancar is a great two-way player. I mean, he can come back. I think, of course, his greatest strength is his offense. But coming back defensively, he's good. He can make interceptions. Kotsira, sometimes I'm getting an anxiety attack where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, like, what's going to happen? Is he going to get nutmegged and fall down? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's like Vaganides is the modern day fullback, and Kotsiras is not that he's old, but he's like trying to be a modern day fullback, but you're just not that guy, like, at this stage in your career. Like, he's probably pre-prime. He's what, like 27 or something like that, I say.
Yeah.
30. No, he's 30. So he's getting there. So I thought he was like 27, 28, but regardless of his age, he's trying to be that same modern day fullback, but that's just like not him. Like, and like we've talked about for other guys like Palacios, Bernard, I think when you simplify his responsibilities in his game, he can put on a good showing like today. Anything beyond that is just, it's asking for drama and trouble.
Also,
Yeah.
I mean, not to give him too much of an excuse, but what we were saying earlier about Bernard and the midfield, like, he hasn't really had a steady partner on, to his left, that right-sided center back. We had injuries last year, coming in and out. Like, at times Sarria was playing, Magnusson got injured and what have you. And now today, Bart pulled his hammy, so that might have thrown off his game a little bit. Because it was relatively early in the game that Bart got injured, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 25 minutes in. And yeah, I mean, even going forward too, that's a good point, Mitso, kind of like we brought up for Bernard. Midfield, he's had Perez, Courbelis, and Seren. I mean, Courbelis and Perez weren't mobile guys. Ivan tried to push Courbelis forward a little more, but they're not going to be like making runs or they're not your link up play kind of guy, where I think now Kotsiras has that with Avilena, Jurisic, or even Palacios now when he gets down there.
Right, but on the defensive side of his duties, like today it was Bart that went down. So who knows? Maybe that played into his head, like, and he started overthinking his defensive responsibilities, and taking the extra touch because he wasn't sure about what was behind him and stuff like that. It could feed into his play overall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possibly. I mean, looking at, I think defensively he had a better game than offensively today, actually. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest, other than the, whoever want to blame for that last minute goal, obviously he got forward, but I think defensively today was one of his better games compared to in the past. His mistakes are always usually because of offensive mistakes that cause him to have a defensive lap because he goes too far forward or makes a bad pass and he's got to recover, but he's already beat on his man, where I think today he found a good balance, I think today.
Yeah, he was. With me, I'm just kind of like, because even before Bart got injured, I mean, there was a point where I was just kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he goes back defensively, and he just tries to dribble past two of their offensive players, and we got kind of lucky where he just fell on the floor and the ref called the foul, where he should have just been playing a little bit smarter. I think it was a little bit before the hamstring injury with Bart, and I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, dude, you're not that guy in that aspect. Right? I don't know if you're thinking you're the star here. So I'm hoping it's what you're saying, Mitso, where maybe he just hasn't had that stability on his side there. But it's just, to me, it just seems like it's a mental thing. How you alluded to Alki, where he goes forward too far and he has to sprint all the way back. And sometimes I feel like defensively, Bart gets pulled out too, and he has to cover for the mistake of.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah, because people were going in on Magnuson, but I think a lot of the times too, where Magnuson's having to play cleanup for Bart because Bart's playing cleanup for Kotsiras, that domino effect. So I don't know. Going forward, it wasn't terrible by any means. Like you said, it was kind of like an average game for Kotsiras today. It's just he does stuff to where Kutz is not the biggest fan of Kotsiras. and
we got to get him on here one day.
You know what? I might have to text him and tell him, hey, jump on with us, because he'll give a side of the game where
he's got a book written about Kotsiras and an analysis on him. I'm curious to see how he'll do against, because Dnipro didn't really necessarily play good in a sense of good counter football. So I'm wondering, like in the Greek league, if he's going to play against a pacey guy or against a team that dominates on the counter, like we've seen, like the Panathinaikos or some, teams that play a low block that their only offense is on the counter and that's it. They'll set up shop. Games like that are where we really see how Kotsiras truly is, or even Vagianidis. We've seen him have lots of defensive laps. Like they have a lot of similarities as far as like their style of play for pros and what their flaws are. So I don't know.
And with Kotsira, like he's one of the few players left that were not just pre-Jovanovic, but pre
Bologna.
Like he was. Yeah, and like just the fact that when he came on, Panathinaikos was still in the position of competing for a European spot in the league, whereas now I think it's safe to say Panathinaikos has evolved back into a team that's competing to get into the group stage. You know what I mean? Like not getting into the group stage now would be a failure, and then not competing for the league until the last 2-3 games of the season, like we did last season, is also a failure. So, like you said, he's 30 already, so there's not much room for him to improve physically and mentally. So he might just kind of be stuck in that mindset of the club from a couple seasons ago.
It could be that, that lingering, because honestly, what Ivan has done, in my opinion, in just this 2 seasons, I mean, let's just be honest, we kind of had like a loser mentality the last 10 years or so. And
we'd be happy with a draw and settling for like just getting a point. Whereas now it's like these are must win. We have to build up points. Like he's built up that culture. We talked about it last episode where having a coach like Jovanovic, even this is his third season now, that's unheard of in the Greek league, like as it is.
His
especially
second
for
full
Panathinaikos.
season, though, right?
This is gonna be his third full season.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, in the Alafusos era, I think this is the longest the coach has lasted.
Yeah,
Besides
because
Vucinic.
Bologna got sacked towards the end of the season where he was kind of teetering us into the top four, and we finished with
The guy that went to Olympiacos, he was like the Panathinaikos B coach, and Bologna was hired like halfway or like in the middle of the season or something like that after we fired
Yeah.
the
yeah,
other
and then the next
guy.
season Jovanovic came out of nowhere. We got him, and then yeah, the rest is history. So yeah, this will be his third full, hopefully knock on wood season.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Like
Again.
we've
So
said.
for us, I mean, the longest coach I can think of that lasted was Anastasio at the beginning of Lafusos, and then I can think of Uzunidis. Other than that,
Yep.
everybody, it's been like a revolving door. Every 6 months to a year, we have a brand new coach. So, I mean, in 2 seasons, we saw what we could do, where we had this weird like loser mentality I alluded to, kind of cooking up to where like Alki said there, we get a draw. We got a draw in the Champions League second qualifier. Like that was like a big deal. Today we went into the game and we're thinking, hey, like we're the favorites. We need to win. If we don't win, what's going on? So it's good to see that evolving and going back to what you said, Mitso, with a player like Kotsiras, perhaps he's kind of stuck in that mentality because he came from Asteras Tripolis. All respect to Asteras Tripolis, but they're not a team that's competing in Europe typically, right? They're not a team that's
No, and he came
competing.
off a season where he was, like I said, a top-rated fullback. They made like top 6. They were battling us during that Bologna season. Like we kept flip-flopping 4, 5, and 6 with them. In the playoffs is where they lost it. So like he was coming off a high from Asteras, coming up on Panathinaikos with a kind of a lax mentality, and so now maybe it's just like maybe this is a kick in the ass for a lot of these guys. Like we said, the old guard pre Ivan, where he's not going to take bullshit and that kind of mentality anymore. You want to. He wants winners, and he's shown that with his lineups too. He plays the guys that show they want to win, not guys based on their seniority either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's going to be a test. Overall for all these guys that are pre Ivan. Guys like Bart, I think will be fine. It's just his health is the big question mark. Kotsiras, of course, the guy we're talking about. Those are the guys that we need to kind of think about. Juankar, we brought Juankar in the season Bologna came, but he's been showing that he can be dependable. So we're gonna need a showing like that, and if not, hey, come wintertime, heck, come even this window. Try to find a third.
We just
right
need
back.
some depth there, because being reliant on either Vagianidis or Kotsiras is, for me, it's a recipe for disaster. That's just gonna always, I feel like, gonna be a weak point in our, strategy when opponents are playing, especially in the Greek league. But we'll get to that stage if we get to it.
So I wanted, now that you brought up strategy, so going forward, any changes you would like to see, maybe formation wise, lineup wise, any changes you guys want to see? Was there anything that we were kind of thinking maybe Ivan can change up for the second leg, maybe going with another shape? Or should we stick with this shape, this 4-3-3?
Well, like I
the
mentioned
4-3-3.
earlier, 4-3-3, I'd start with it. Yeah, definitely. But we've also seen, depending on how the game's going, we were playing with 3 fullbacks for a large chunk of that time when we were pushing forward in the first half and even the second half, where Ivan's letting his guys play it a little more freely and forward, where we were more of a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 type of thing. But we've seen Ivan switch it up, maybe not necessarily formation wise, but we've seen him switch up tactics and approach to games depending on the opponent. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix is always my thing. Ivan's been playing that 4-3-3 and it's been working since he came in, obviously.
Mitso, what are you thinking?
Formation wise, I think we're good, and I think it's mainly due to the versatility that we mentioned earlier. Like at times, this formation showed that it can be adjusted to be more in the front foot, and I think that'll fit more. Obviously playing at home, and yeah, I mean, we're playing at home. People were already excited about playing Champions League qualifiers. Now that we're coming back to Leofoto with a 3-1 win, that, knock on wood, is not something that we let slip. So I think a lot of the fans are going to be going to the stadium excited to just watch the team qualify into the next round, basically. So yeah, and the attitude, like you mentioned, from Sporad, that I think is a reflection of the whole squad, that the guys are just gonna play like it's 0-0 and just take it to them and have a good game. So I think formation wise we stay the same. I would like to see someone else on the wings. I would take out Palacios probably for the starting role, if I'm being honest. And that's where I would say either Mancini, or depending on how I thought is feeling, maybe he gets the start and feels the game out, kind of gets back into playing condition, like filling out the game and all that. You have that 2-goal cushion coming home. It could be a good time to get him reacclimated into the squad. Or if it's Mancini starting, I really do want to see Aitor playing, if he's, physically ready.
Yeah, we have to see. We got to confirm. I don't recall if I thought it was included in like the squad list for Europe, but I mean, just even going forward,
Oh
Mito,
yeah,
I agree. I think the beauty of Mancini is he can play on both sides, because we've seen him and Palacios last season swap middle of the game and stuff. So for me, on a go forward basis, Foti and Sporar, we can talk about that all day. Obviously, Sporar got the start today in a big game. I think on the wings, I'd go with the same. I'd say probably Mancini on the left, so he can cut in on his right, because he's primarily right footed. And I thought on the right, cutting into his left, because that's where he got most of his damage done when he was good. I would play those two on the wings, and have guys like Palacios and Bernard come off the bench, because like we said, Bernard doesn't have the legs. Palacios needs to kind of work his way back into fitness. He had a couple bad injuries last season of just, I don't think he got back to full fitness really off of a hamstring and stuff. So I would agree there, Meet. So I think for the wing play, I would start those two. Again, I don't know how I thought is fitness wise.
I just don't think Ivan is the type of coach to change out both the wings,
Oh
from
yeah,
one game to the other.
unfortunately, definitely not. But
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very particular, right? I think, yeah, 4-3-3 is something that we're gonna stick with, and I'm happy with it because we're very winger oriented, and you guys brought up that point there. I just I personally, yeah, I dropped Palacios, honestly. I'm a fan of his. But he does need to find his feet again. Mancini, the way that he just came in and just seamlessly fit in the second half of the season last season, I think he's a starter in my opinion. I mean, the guy, he's an impact guy instantly. Just start him. I'd also bench Bernard. I love the point that Mitso brought up earlier about perhaps that's why our midfield is designed the way that it is for this season, to kind of lay off the heavy load from him. Even so, I just like to have that mix up, and let's say Aitor is in the squad, he's healthy and ready. I would love to see Aitor make an appearance, or Verbic as well. Verbic is arguably the guy that was the best during the preseason. Maybe seeing him start off on the left there. He got some reps today. Didn't touch the ball too many times, but I'd love to see that going forward. Let his confidence grow. Whatever was plaguing him last season, that's in the past now. He's in the present. We're in a new season, time to start fresh. He's got our support. Why not start at Leoforos, have the fans backing you, supporting you, and seeing what happens there. But I agree with what you guys said as well. Ivan is a little bit of he's very particular with how he likes the things, and he's not going to make, two changes at once. Usually, I mean, he'll tinker during the game, but starting off, I don't know. I mean, that's what I would personally go with, but there's a reason again why he's the professional coach and I'm the guy in the podcast. So, you know, so yeah,
very well said.
yeah, Hey, I
What do you
trust
guys
you, Ivan.
What do you guys think of the right back position? Obviously, Kotsiras was such a big talking point, not just for us. So, is that something you think Jovanovic will consider? Because it's not like he's really set on either right back. You know, like the other positions, I feel like he has his mind more made up. And the right back, it doesn't seem like he does. So do you think he might change that and put Vayanidi there?
I don't know. I feel like he's dealing with what he dealt with last season. Like we never knew who was going to really start every game at right back. Like we'd see Vagianidis go have a pretty poor game, but then he would still get the start next game, or vice versa. Kotsiras would have a great game and get the start again, or he would have a great game and then he'd get benched. Either one of them. I think he just kind of rotates because, like we mentioned just a few minutes ago, I think neither are complete in what he's looking for in a fullback. And maybe he's just very particular and he's sticking with that because he hasn't found the right profile in the free market. I mean, I don't know. I think we'll just see a lot of flip-flopping with those two. I'd say more on the side of Kotsiras just because he's more experienced and stuff. This is still young. I don't expect him to break into the starting 11 for a good amount of games, but I think we'll still see him get plenty of game time. Um, I just, yeah, I personally don't know what'll happen on that side.
Yeah, Ivan is kind of a wild card when it comes to that right back spot. I mean, I remember in games like against Olympiacos, he started by Yanidis, who I was like, oh, okay, I didn't really expect it. I'm thinking, yeah, he's probably gonna go with Kotsiras, but I mean, at the same time, you never know. It makes sense. I really grilled Kotsiras as well. It makes sense to start him. Just because, let's say Bart is out, probably gonna have Yedvay again starting. Kotsiras got a little bit of a rep with him there. I don't know if he's gonna want to switch things up and then have Vayanidis, who's not familiar with him, play automatically start off the bat. I don't really know what he's thinking. That's just one of those things, and it goes back to our point that we mentioned earlier. We need to find the go-to guy because that is the question mark position for us. That's kind of the weak link for us, especially in the first half when Dnipro was going forward. They were attacking the side of Kotsiras a lot. While we were attacking their left, they were attacking our right side. So solidifying that is going to be huge going forward. We see what Dnipro could do. They gave us, I think today they gave us their heavy punch. So going forward into next week, I think we kind of know what to expect a little bit. They're gonna attack us on that side again, but that's pretty much it's Kotsiras. I think he already got the rep. Just going into
Yeah,
this season, we don't know.
I'm looking at the stats right now, and he played majority of the minutes like at the starting spot on that right back spot last season. In the regular season, he's got 17 games, and I think he might have had a couple injuries here or there, small ones, but I think for me we'll probably see the same pattern. What about you, Mitso? Do you think that'll switch up? I mean, you brought up a good question though of what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
I honestly I don't know. I don't know about the right back position. I think ultimately it'll probably be, at least for this next match next week, Kotsira again will be starting, honestly.
Yeah, because looking at it, I mean, Vagianidis Kotsiras got 30 matches, all competitions last season. Played a little over 2,000 minutes. Vagianidis got 24 matches, so not that far off, but just to tick over 1,000 minutes total. So Kotsiras basically played double the amount of time as far as minutes go. So I mean, between the two, it's in Kotsira's favor, but Vagianidis still got his fair share of opportunities. So I think we'll probably see the same thing. I mean, I think the general consensus here is we don't know, and hopefully that means Ivan's going to bring in a fullback that'll be able to, get some competition going there. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that's probably our one spot. I think we can all agree on that. We definitely need is probably I'd say the only spot really in the squad that we need some improvement on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the question mark spot.
Alki, I want to jump off from what you just said, but before that, real quick, assuming Bart can't play next game, do you think Jedvaj kind of solidified that position for himself? Or are we going to see Siveras or maybe Mladenovic slide in for that position?
It's a good point. I mean, it's not something obviously Ivan wasn't going to make a big change. He already had to make a change for Bart early on. I don't know who he's going to favor. I mean, him and Magnussen look like a pretty good partnership today. What do you guys think?
No, yeah. I think that's definitely the duo. I'm just thinking if Bart can't play due to injury next game, will we just see Jedvaj start or
well, that's what I mean. Do we see Jedvaj? I'm saying I think Jedvaj looked good next to Magnussen. I don't. If Bart's not able to go, I think even just on a go forward basis, we have options, but he went with Jedvaj right away. I think with if he thought or felt more comfortable with Cidet or somebody else, he wouldn't have just thrown in the new guy right away either.
And to bring up a point too, Mladenovic is also left-footed and Magnus is left-footed. I don't know if he's going to play two left-footed center backs. I think the most clear would probably be Jedvaj at this point. Maybe if it's a long-term injury, he might push to sign another center back because I think we've got Bart, Magnussen, Jedvaj, and who's it?
Mladenovic and Sideras. I don't see him playing that far back. He can, but I don't see him playing, and I don't see them calling up anyone from the youth team. So maybe they sign somebody else. I mean, it's hard to say with Bart. It's a hamstring injury. Hopefully it's not serious, but that's a good point. So yeah, I don't see them playing two left-footed center backs like we talked about last time. It's just kind of a weird football rule that you just don't do that. Why? I don't know why, but
I remember you bringing that up last time.
As we see, right? I mean, they're not common, but I mean, obviously we see two right-footed center backs playing all the time. So what's the difference? But I don't know. That's a good point. What do you think, Mitso?
I remember last time we talked about it, and it was before we signed Jedvaj, in terms of, bring in a backup center back that was right-footed because we got Mladenovic, but we didn't have a backup for Bart. But now, even though we brought in Jedvaj,
Bart goes down.
Bart goes down, so that might change everything. And, bouncing off, I think, just to wrap that up, I think Jedvaj will probably start. But bouncing off what you said before, bring in a right back, just looking forward, because again, knock on wood, but it seems like we've got the next round locked, and obviously everyone has been talking about making more moves and it just being contingent on, if we're going to make the next round or not. And I'm assuming Jovanovic and the rest of the staff kind of had two sets of options of who they're going to go for in terms of players, an A list of, we're going into the next round, getting the money, etc., or a B list, worst case scenario, we get knocked out by Dnipro. That obviously changes who you can go for. So who do you guys think, or not who, but what position do you guys think we're going to go for it? Besides right back, you guys talked a lot about. Another thing I had in mind was Perez. Aside from his performance today, he's older. I think he's one of the oldest guys on the team. Last season, he played a lot of minutes because we didn't have as much cover. And we still don't have cover besides Zeka for that sixth position. And it's not like Zeka is really a clear-cut defensive mid like Perez is. So you guys were talking a lot about right back, but I thought the priority would be a six, someone that this season and going into next season would be taking Bettis' position, honestly.
I think Zeka's the only guy. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got Sideras can play in the midfield. There's always that rumor of that guy from Levadiakos, Yannikos.
Yeah, the Greek
Laini Afro guy.
Yeah, he doesn't have it anymore. He shaved it off, but
What?
yeah, or at least for this season he
I
did.
don't
He
want
did
him
last season. But that's a good point, Mitso. I think that the problem with the 6 is you either find a guy that's young, which we have Sideras, who's 21, you have to develop him, or you have to go with a well-established guy, which at that point, getting an established guy in Greece, you're probably still looking at a 31 plus year old. So I don't think we'll find a guy that's in their mid 20s or super early 30s. Guys like Sideras and Yannikas, unfortunately, they're not, from what I've seen at least, they're not very good. Not that they're bad, but they're not good ball playing. Like, they're not going to be that engine, like Adoni mentioned, the conductor of that midfield. Like Jursic and Vilena, we saw them dictating a lot of the play, but that's more to get offense going, versus Perez kind of just controls it. And those two guys I don't see as being his replacement. Now, if they think they can make it another season with Perez and they can still learn and stuff, that's a different ball game. But that position being the 6 is something you have to develop, or you're going to get an older guy for the Greek league. If we're talking generally speaking, yeah, we can throw out a ton of names, obviously, but we're not going to spend like Ike or Libiokos have been the last few seasons of getting guys in a good age that are going to be impactful and be able to stay more than 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, that's a guy, thinking of Ruben, building off of that. I remember his first season. It was like he was that deep lying playmaker a little bit, finding and feeding those players. I remember specifically the first game where Vital, remember that Brazilian guy where he just went off. I got hyped. I jumped the gun, but I was remembering Perez was just picking that defense apart with those deep balls. And that whole season, I think that's what helped us win the cup, as well as the guy was just, on it, just deep passes, penetrating passes each time. So we're going to need to find somebody like that, but it's hard to find somebody like that. I mean, on the market, it's very expensive. This guy that I'm thinking of, he's not quite this type of profile, but he could be beneficial, and he's an Olympiacos guy, unfortunately, but Siopis. Siopis is a guy that I would have liked to see in this role, fill in for, whenever Perez is out, Zeka is out, they're both mid-30s. I think Siopis is entering his 30s, probably already there, but the guy, he can run, he can get things done, he can cut passing lanes. He provides a different dimension to the game, to where we've got a guy like Vilena who can be that creator for us. He can make those forward passes like we saw today. So I think it's a part of finding a guy like Perez's profile, but also just finding an extra body there, because I don't know how Zeka and Perez are going to be able to play a full season on heavy minutes with their injury, especially Zeka's injury history now. It's like, back-to-back ACL tears?
Yeah, and I mean, he was never a very mobile guy before his latest injury. Perez, 34 now. When you talk about when he was great with Vital, he was 31, 32. So obviously just over his peak or prime. So he still had it in him. Whereas I think now by this stage, we're going to see him slow down. So it kind of goes back to the point, we got Perez when he was really good for us at his peak age, 31, 32. I think if we're going to replace him, it's just going to be another guy. That's just going to be a revolving thing until we can develop someone. And then hopefully it doesn't turn into like Alexandropoulos situation where you get a good offer, but then we just sell him off. Because that would have been a guy I could say, he was playing a little more forward, but he can still, Alexandropoulos was able to be a deep ball playmaker if he wanted to. Like, he was very good at that. Unless somebody like him can come back, I don't see us going for anyone outside that's younger than 31, 30.
I just wish we didn't get rid of Kurbelis, honestly, or well, not us, but Kurbelis wanted to leave. I mean, I know Ivan was playing him a little more forward, but he could play in that position that Perez
If
was.
we had like what we had today and Courbellis was there instead of Perez, that would have been in his natural role of more of a defensive midfielder. Like I would have no worries.
Yeah, that's and the thing, and with Kurbelis too. Like last season, I felt like he was really developing his passing too. Like he was making those penetrating passes. So it's just a shame, I felt like he developed his game and he would have been the perfect fit. But he had his reasons to leave, of course. It's just kind of a shame. And Alki, like you're saying, like these types of players, they don't grow on trees. So,
We got
in
Courbellis
Europe,
from Asteras when he was what 24 or something, and he developed here. Obviously, his long-term injury, so
yeah,
it
like
took years for that to happen. So at this stage, we don't have time for that right now. We needed an immediate
win now mode.
plug, but I don't see it.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, in Europe, you're gonna be spending millions upon millions to find a guy, that's very good quality, that's young. They're not gonna come to the Greek league. You gotta find a guy like Perez from a good league like La Liga, that's like 31, 32, entering towards the horizon of their career there. So, yeah, that's a great point you guys brought up. Just wanted to kind of segue the conversation a little bit more, and we mentioned it already, or we may have mentioned him already, but with the conclusion of the match, with the conclusion of the first leg, who was your guys's man of the match today? I'm gonna let you go first, Mitso. Who was your man of the match?
I think, I mean, it's got to be Juancar. Obviously for his performance. I think I was going into the game excited for him because I had heard that it was going to be his 100th appearance. And he was even the guy that Jovanovic brought with him to the press conference before the game, which puts a lot of onus on him. It wasn't Bart the captain. It wasn't, I don't know. It could have been any number of guys, but it was Juancar. And, for someone that also finished the season not really being a guaranteed starter, despite everything he's done for the club, he kind of fell off. And yeah, I think the whole, the narrative going into the game for him, it wasn't bad, but it just was some uncertainty, but also a lot of pressure on him at the same time. And I think he rose to the occasion. And that nutmeg was just something else for the first.
The stars were all aligned for him, like you said, the 100th appearance. Ivan brought him in, new season, involved in all 3 goals. Like it was a storybook type of day for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you guys said it perfectly there. I mean, he had a perfect game almost. I mean, 3 assists, huge difference maker for us today. And I had thought that he had nutmegged on the first goal. I thought he nutmegged the second guy when he passed it, but then on the replay it wasn't. So I was like, man, this guy nutmegged both of them to get the goal in. But he was just everywhere, man. You as a fan, you appreciate that. Running up and down. The dude's 34 years old, right? And I mean, running up and down, playing the full 90, giving it his all. He even their best player actually got a yellow card thanks to him as well. He kind of he stole the dive a little bit there with the hit in the face, but he got it for us. I mean, he won that. That kind of made him cautious. Their best striker made him cautious for the rest of the game. So you just gotta love him, man. I think it was a consensus there that he was our man of the match. We had a bunch of guys playing well, but he was the guy for us. Now, looking forward now, our final topic here, our final question here. The home leg, the return leg, Leoforos, our predictions. What do we think thinking the scores are gonna be there? Or the score is gonna be?
Depending on what the lineup is, if we go with the same lineup, I mean, I don't know. I still think we'll squeak away with like another. I think we'll get another double digit, or not double digit, at least 2 goals or more. I think like a 2-1, maybe even a draw 2-2. But I think we'll see a couple more goals. I don't think we'll play it safe.
Mhm.
What about you, Mitso?
I think 3-0. I don't think I said it to anyone, like any of the group chats, but a lot of people were saying like 1-0, 2-1 for this game. And I was going into it thinking 2-0. So yeah, I'm just gonna say 3-0. Put it out there for this round.
Yeah, I'm in the same book. I'm 3-0 for next round, and I'm gonna be honest, you guys. I'm a little bit embarrassed. I thought we were gonna win 5-0 today. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what it was. I'm going into the game. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I think this is gonna be a 5-piece. I'm thinking this is what's gonna happen, and then it's 1-0 for a good chunk of the game, and I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm sweating bullets. But I think we let that anxiety out a little bit. We're gonna be playing in front of our home crowd. And we've
With a
seen it before.
lead. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, even last year, I think even last season when we were down, Leo Fotos was still rocking.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
look at your
going
back.
into it up that much with that much momentum, almost we're thinking we've got it guaranteed into the next round. It's home game's gonna be more of a party than a hold out for hope type of game for us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And you know, I asked this question with all respect to Dini Pro because, of course, the second leg hasn't been completed yet. But if we do pass by Dini Pro in the second leg, I believe we're playing Marseille.
Mhm.
What are you guys' thoughts on that? What do you guys think about Marseille? Do you think with our current squad as constructed, we'd be able to take on Marseille in a two-leg tie?
Do we know right as of right now if it's which fixture is first, home or away, or is that not set in stone yet?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm
I
not
mean,
sure.
they have the higher rank, so I would assume if anything, they get the advantage of having second leg at home. But at the same time, I don't know how much, like, because Ike is also going to be playing in the next rounds. UEFA has those weird rules of you can't have two games in the same city on the same night, so that might feed into it. Of you
Mhm.
know, if Ike has the second or whatever, if Ike has the advantage and they play at home second leg, maybe that plays a role and affects us with Marseille. Another thing,
I don't think the fixtures are out yet. I'm checking ever right now. The schedule isn't showing anything.
okay.
Okay.
Another interesting thing is that we probably won't have away fans. Um, UEFA have been already talking with Greek police, French police, the Greek FA, French FA, and the Croatian FA because it seems like Dinamo Zagreb, who beat Astana like 3-0 today, if not more, I don't remember. They're probably going to play AEK, and we're probably going to play Marseille. For those of you that don't know, Dinamo Zagreb and Panathinaikos, the ultra groups, have a close relationship, and the same goes for Marseille and the AEK Originals. So people, UEFA and the cops are already concerned about having, Marseille giving tickets to AEK fans to get into Leofoto, and vice versa for Dinamo and Panathinaikos. So it seems like there's not going to be away fans in any of those fixtures. For that could play a role also. Marseille are obviously a big team and are a step up from us and Dnipro. So I don't know. Honestly, I'd like to be cautiously optimistic. I'll give a shout out to a guy who commented on our Facebook page. Actually, I'm blanking on his name, so I'll apologize. But he did say that he was really happy with today's performance, and he said that if Aitor is fit and starting by the by the time we play Marseille, that he thinks that we could take them. So I thought that was interesting.
Hey, I mean, I appreciate. For me, I think we could pull a result away from Marseille between the two games. I just
Mhm.
don't see us actually beating them in both legs.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's just a huge step up from where we're at now from Dnipro, from us, our level, it's like 2 or 3 levels higher than, you know, what we're
Mhm.
used to. Even though Marseille's dropped down that much, I mean, talked about earlier, the French league, the big teams there, they just rotate every year of who gets in Europe and who doesn't, and there's always 1 or 2 surprise teams, and they've got some good established players now. Some of their players were coming into throughout their youth. They got Harit and Guendouzi that were playing there. Now they got Aubameyang. Those guys have all got lots of games under their belt, lots of experience, lots of speed on that team, which I don't think with our aged guys, just like we've been talking about this whole episode, I don't think we can hang with those guys. Aubameyang, even at whatever he is, 32, 33, is like, will run laps around our fastest guy. Like, that's just the reality. Not including guys like Harit and some of their other guys. It's just, I don't know. That'd be a tough matchup. But I haven't watched Marseille in a while. I don't know, their coach and how he approaches games or his tactics. So
Honestly, and this is coming from an Arsenal fan too. Like I don't think I'm too worried about Aubameyang. I mean, he hasn't really been performing since he left Arsenal, whether it was at Barcelona or most recently at Chelsea. I mean, I think he'll do fine in the French league and even in these qualifiers. But I think a player like Sanchez, Alexis Sanchez, who's actually at Marseille and who's kind of not been rejuvenated because he's much older now, but he's playing at a decent level.
he had a great season this last season too.
Yeah, he had a great season. Definitely like recovered from his slump at United. So I think that's another player because also Ivanovic is smart. So we're not going to be playing as much on the front foot as we did against Dnipro. Like it'll definitely be a rock solid, like sit back, defend type performance, which doesn't give Aubameyang space to run in. And he's lost he's lost the touch, I think. But a player like Sanchez is someone that gets involved.
Well,
Plays
they've
those
got Sanchez. He plays 1-2s. They got that young Turkish kids, Under. They've got Harit. They've got Kondogbia and Veritout too. I mean, they're pretty well balanced.
That's where Under is playing now.
Yep, he's over there,
Okay.
or at least he's listed on their roster right now and on their squad. Yeah, he looks like he moved there. He was there last year on loan from Galatasaray, and then it looks like he's signed on there permanently.
Hmm.
Or from Roma, but yeah, he had a couple loan spells and looks like he's staying there. So that's just another level to their attack. Like they've got 3 or 4 guys that could just play all that same position. But like you said, Mitso, that link up 1-2 can be hard to contain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think currently, honestly, our level is not Champions League. It's like you said, 1-2 levels under. I think we're gonna be. I think we're a Conference League / Europa League team currently. We come up against Marseille. I don't know if we're gonna be. I mean, it's possible. Panathinaikos in the past, of course, kind of steps up in these big games. Greeks in general step up in big moments. So, um, anything can happen. Perhaps we could steal a result, but overall, throughout the tie, I don't know if we progress past Marseille. If we get past Dnipro first, of course. Guys like Aubameyang, again, you guys are mentioning. We've got a kind of like a geriatric defense, minus Yedvay. I think they're like he's 29, 28, but yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen there. I mean, we saw Dnipro gave us a little bit of a fit today, so I mean, Marseille is obviously a step up, and that goes without saying. Let's say we don't make any adjustments, any additions to the squad. Which anyway, I think it would be too late to acclimate them. But
we got to get there first, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got to get there. We've got to
the next game at Dnipro is going to be very telling. How for real we are, how serious we are about this competition. Honestly.
Yeah, and so that's kind of I think that's a good way to kind of end this. We're kind of on that cliffhanger note there where we don't know. We've got Dnipro coming up on Tuesday for that home game. And then we'll see from there. You know, if we get past them, then we've got this giant in Marseille that we'll have to take care of. But any last notes, you guys, before we end off tonight's episode?
It's going to be, knock on wood, we get past Dnipro. It's going to be the most successful team in Greece in terms of European performance against the most successful team in France in terms of European performance, because they are the only French team to have won a Champions League. So that's another interesting little note there.
Yeah. Historical European pedigree there, right?
Oh, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I think today was a good way to get everyone excited for the season.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, yeah, today was a great thing for us Panathinaikos fans, right? 8 years, first time back in Champions League, we got the win. We play Dnipro next week on Tuesday. It was great having Alki and Mitso on the podcast today to discuss. We're the American panel. Next time, it should be our Australian panel coming on here and discussing that second leg. Nice speaking with you both. Be sure, if you guys aren't already, to give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That way you guys can listen to the episodes when you're driving to work, relaxing, working, whatever you're doing. We're going to continue working. And we'll be talking about Panathinaikos. And here's hoping the next time we're on the panel, we'll be able to talk about Panathinaikos versus their next opponent in Europe. So good night, you guys. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you soon.